Welcome to yet another exciting edition of Sports Talk here on Atlantic Television Network. On this edition of the program, Team Nigeria to present a strong squad at the World Relays, and coming in from basketball, Rivers Hoopers signed yet another player ahead of the basketball league here in Africa. And from football, it was collapsed Chelsea last night at the Emirates Stadium. Details of this and many more will be yours when we return from the break.
Telling him not to counterpunch.
Sports Talk here on Atlantic Television Network, and I have with me Kingsley Manuel. Nice to have you, Kingsley.
Thank you very much for having me, sir. Very happy to be here this morning.
Let's get started. Of course, we start from the local scene here, where the Athletics Federation of Nigeria has listed Toby Amusa, Favor Fili, and Molara Ogumajikinju among the athletes to represent Nigeria at the World Relays at the Thomas A. Robinson National Stadium in Nassau. Kingsley, this is a squad to envy.
Of course, a squad to envy. If you ask me down there, Toby Amusa, and of course we'll understand her progress, and we've seen how good she's been over time. And talking about other athletes, of course, who have been listed for the relay race, I think it's actually a good one. When it has to do with relay, Team Nigeria will not represented ourselves very well. You talk about the Olympics, the World Athletics, it's always been one issue or the other. Always find it difficult in terms of exchange of batting. And I think this time around, the Athletics Federation of Nigeria, they've been able to see how they can bring the best this time, for we not to get it, wrong this time around at the Paris Olympic Games. You talk about the last Olympic Games in Tokyo. It was the same issue of exchange of batting. We went down to the World Athletics Championship as well, with the same issue of exchange of batting. But with the names we have now, I think they're very much experienced, to be able to, of course, get past those kind of errors when it has to do with exchange of batting. Toby Amusa and the rest of them, I think they've actually understand what it takes. They understand what it takes, to be on the relay, courts, and we look forward to see them, of course, coming up very confident and impressive performance. The surprise exclusion down there is Favor Ashe. I don't know why they actually excluded him, of course, from that team, because I think Favor Ashe so far has not done. He has not actually had a very poor performance so far. It was actually one of the fastest man down here in Nigeria at some point. But if you take a look at his recent performance, I don't think he has done badly. For me, I was really surprised that he was actually being excluded from that particular team. Maybe the Athletics Federation of Nigeria, they know what they really want at this point in time. Let's just see what the likes of Favor, and let's see what the likes of Toby Amusa and the rest, of course, will do this time around.
What could be the reason for the exclusion of Toby Amusa? This is a man who has been very instrumental, especially in the 4x100 meters relay event. In fact, in the adults, we understand he's under 10 seconds, 9.96 and 9.99 has been his time return so far this year.
For me, that's what I said, really, really surprised, because the man has actually done too well for himself this year. And from what we've seen, I don't think he has actually gotten a, let's say, a poor performance, recent. And it's a huge surprise for me. But as I said, maybe the Athletics Federation of Nigeria, they have another plan, this time around, when it has to do with the relay event. Like I mentioned, we've always not been getting it, right when it has to do with, relay race. There's always issue of exchange of batting and all of that. And maybe they actually feel that Toby Amusa and the rest of the girls, of course, will be able to do the job this time around. For Favor Ashe, I think he also will be included in other events that, of course, he will also, participate as a stand. But for me, it's actually a huge surprise to me, because I actually thought, of course, Favor Ashe should have been there in order, to help the relay team. But let's just see what the likes of Toby Amusa and the rest in that particular team will be able to do.
Very poor, I would say, feelings for the Favor Share, the more man that look forward to participating at the Olympic Games, but at the World Release, he's completely left out. Meanwhile, we have Godson Ogenebureme, of course, Udojo Wonzurike, who lead the list of 8 sprinters, especially that will be listed for the 4x100 meters relay event. Others are Laba Kintula and, of course, Carlington and Nunuga. Consider Ekanem and, of course, Shea Gulewe, not forgetting Sunday are the others they listed for the world release. The team is expected to be among the best 14 finishers to secure a lane in Paris for the first time since 2008. I remember the quartet of Uwogu, Onyebo, Obina, Metu, Chinedu, Oriala, and Uchenna Emedolu, who did not finish in the first heat of the bed. That was when it was last hosted. You know, I think that was at the 2008 event that took place in Beijing, China. Well, we wish the team Nigeria very best of luck, but I'm very sure a lot of Nigerians are expecting an explanation from the Athletics Federation of Nigeria over the, the omission, or do I say, not listing of a favor. What do you think?
Because you can't exclude, an athlete like that, from such a team. It actually calls for concern. Has there been any internal issue that maybe we don't understand or maybe we don't know at this point in time? Because you can't say they won't actually be bold to come out and tell us that Favor Shea has not been very fantastic. The man has been doing it, but like I mentioned, one of the fastest man, of course, that we have in the country when it has to do with events like this. So I think that exclusion really calls for a lot of question. Why exclude such an athlete? From what we've seen at this point in time, I think there should be more unity, there should be more harmony in the Athletic Federation of Nigeria. Yes, we were able to put up a very impressive performance at the African Games, of course, in Ghana. Athletics down here in Nigeria was one of the sports that give us a lot of medals at the All African Games in Ghana. But I still expect the fact that there should be harmony. We don't want to hear a situation whereby the exclusion of Favor Shea maybe as a result of issue or one thing or the other, because everyone expected the fact that he should be included in that particular team. But let's just keep our fingers crossed. But I think this time, going to the Olympics, we should be able to get the very best, because last time I think the Athletic Federation of Nigeria didn't do well. They were able they were just able to get just one medal at the Tokyo Olympics. This time they should be able to go all the way to make sure they get these medals. And I think a player like Favor Shea should be very instrumental in gathering those medals for Team Nigeria when it has to do with athletics.
Well, we'll keep our fingers crossed and hope that the Athletics Federation of Nigeria definitely will give an explanation to Nigerians why Favor Shea, one man who has done under 10 seconds this year, was left out of the party going to the world release. Well, we'll stay away from that and quickly go to basketball now and talk about, just before we go to basketball, Encomium seems to be continuing to pour the way of a renowned chess master, the marathoner right now in the world of chess, a man who did 60 hours, on the trot. Tunde Onokoya, who entered into the Guinness Book of Records as the man with the most run in chess. He was on that board for 60 hours non-stop, especially what we saw of him at the Times Square in New York a few days ago. Was aimed at raising $1 million for African children across in their education. Kingsley, this man has done what no other man has done in the world. Stay, for 60 hours on the board and not lose. And now he's been the most marathoner in chess. Nigerians can't stop pouring comments on him.
Yeah, of course, he has really, put smiles, on the faces of so many Nigerians, and of course, taking that die-hard spirit, for Nigeria to another level this time around. I think for me, it's a very huge one, of course, for Onokayo, for him to have been able to stay up to that, and of course, being unbeaten. We saw so many persons, of course, coming to compete with him, but throughout the 60 hours, the man was unbeaten. That's a very huge feat, and that's to tell you that we have a lot of talents as well down here in Nigeria. We talk about Scrabble, we talk about chess, so many sports, and now we're seeing a Nigerian putting up such an impressive feat. I think a lot of accolades need to go to the man we saw when he was actually on contesting, a lot of Nigerians gave him the support. Even the president of the country, Ahmed Bola Tinubu, also threw his support to him. A lot of musicians down here, and well, overwhelming Nigerians also sent their support, of course, to the man. So for me, I think he should be given those accolades for putting up such an impressive feat. Not only doing it for himself, but doing it for the sake of Africa. The money he actually got was to help improve the educational level of some African children down here. And I think for me that's a very huge one. He didn't actually, it wasn't he wasn't selfish. He was actually doing it, of course, to encourage other people. And I think for me that's the way to go. And you take a look at it, the way Nigerians are going in terms of making sure that they put up a very impressive record when it has to do with the Guinness World Record. I think it's something very impressive. We should be looking forward to see this, such a kind of feat, from other Nigerians as well.
Nigerians entering into the Guinness Book of Records. Remember the case of Hilda, and after Hilda we've had several. And now it is the latest coming from chess, and the man who has been on the trot for 60 hours, beating the 56 hours earlier held by the Guinness Book of Records. Meanwhile, let's quickly go to volleyball now. Talk about volleyball. Reminds me that the Nigerian women's beach volleyball team will resume camp in the next 48 hours ahead of their preparations going to the Olympic Games. Kingsley, Paris 2024 Olympic Games is here, and the qualifiers for beach volleyball in Africa is hotting up. We understand Morocco will venue on the 19th, 23rd of June. Can the Nigerian beach volleyball team continue with the excellent performance so far?
I think they will continue. When we'll take a look at what they did at the All-African Games in Ghana, they were able to get a bronze medal from that particular competition. And for me, that is not a very poor performance, for a volleyball, beach volleyball team, of Nigeria. And if they can be able to build on that success at the All-African Games in Ghana in this particular qualifiers, I think it will be a very good one, seeing Nigeria participating in beach volleyball at the Paris Olympic Games. And that will also make us, of course, to amass more medals, at this point in time. We've always been complaining of the fact that, we don't participate in many sports, just like what we saw at the All-African Games in Ghana. But if we're able to have a beach volleyball team at the Paris Olympic, I think it will actually go a long way in helping of our team Nigeria to amass more medals at this point in time. For me, I think they are there, and they can actually do this one. If they can go down to Ghana and be able to take a bronze medal, I think what they should be looking forward to now is to build on what they were able to do at the All-African Games in Ghana in this particular one. And of course, we should be seeing the beach volleyball team, getting the ticket to the Paris Olympic Games.
Nigerian beach volleyball team looking at going to Paris, but first they have to qualify here in Africa, and they have a date in the first or second week of June. 24 sports are available. We understand United States of America winners of the 2023 Beach Volleyball World Championship are also secure one of the spots, for beach volleyball at the Olympic Games. We hope that Nigeria will emerge as continental champions, because winners of the 5 Continental Confederation Olympic qualifier events will earn 1 spot each, and Nigeria will hope to pick the available slot from Africa. Best of luck to beach volleyball team going to camp in the next 48 hours. And from volleyball, let's look at the latest coming from the world of cricket. Nigeria's under-19 female cricket team have started preparation as well ahead of the 2025 International Cricket Council Women's Under-19 World Cup qualifiers, which will be played in Rwanda sometime in August. Kingsley, this is not a very popular sport here in Nigeria, but momentum is gathering in cricket.
Yeah, momentum is gathering in cricket, and if you take a look at it, we're gradually seeing that growth, coming in cricket. This is the under-19 team now preparing as well, and we also have the under-20 team. And I think for me, there's been a steady rise when it has to do with cricket in the country. And I think for me, this time around, the girls, of course, will be handled by very highly coach, you said at this point in time, will actually come from Kenya, and will be assisted by Blessing, a team who has also been in cricket down here in Nigeria for a very long time. And I think having those calibers of coaches this time around will really help these girls be able to improve and to get themselves fit for this particular one. For me, I think we've seen the steady rise of cricket so far, and I think for me, with this progression, we can be able to have cricketers dominating all over the world. Let's just see what we're able to come out from this particular one.
Nigeria didn't qualify for the last edition, the tournament that took place in South Africa, and thus must do everything to qualify this time around. We understand 48 players have been called to camp. For the 8 players that will be prone to 25 and reduced to eventual 16 that will be heading for the 2025 World Cricket Council that will be played in Malaysia and Thailand. We hope that Nigeria will do well to pick the available ticket as well in this one, because India did win last time in 2023. Meanwhile, we can now go to basketball, where the Nigerian women's national basketball team, the Tigress, will have adequate preparation ahead of the Summer Olympic Games in Paris. This is coming from the head of the Basketball Federation here in Nigeria. Kingsley, is this possible? These girls have seemed to be caught in crossfire in the past. Musa Kidana says they will have adequate preparation ahead of the Olympic Games.
I think for me it's a good news, at least if this is coming out, if this is coming from the mouth of Musa Kida himself, it's actually good news. With this, we can rely on this, so we should be looking forward to see that there will be no disappointment this time around, of course, for the girls, because we saw what happened the last time, where, of course, they came, and get themselves, prepared, but couldn't participate. But this time around, if the NBBF, president, talking about Musa Kida, is coming up at this point in time to give, this level of, license support, and at this point, I think it will go a long way. And I think for what we've seen, the Tigress of Nigeria, for what they've done over time, of course, we should, of course, be able to give them that support to go down there to the Paris Olympic, and get themselves, and do what they have to do best. We've seen Rena Wakama, seen how she's been able to put these girls together. So it's been very, very disappointing if anything comes in a way that, they are unable to get down to Paris, to represent after qualifying and have to do everything they can, of course, so at this point in time. So there should be top-notch preparation. The girls should be called in time. We have about 2 months to the Paris Olympics. They should be called in time and start camping, because, they are in a very, very tough group, at this point in time. And if time is not taken, they might not have their way. But from what we've seen so far, Rena Wakama, of course, will might just put up another record, for ourselves. So let's just see how it goes this time around. We hope that what the NBF president has said will come to fruition, because most of the time we've always seen them coming up to give, such kind of, statement, and at the end of the day, you don't, see this, come to reality. But we hope that now that the NBF president Musa Kida has come up to say this, we hope that the sport ministry as well will also support, in order for we to see the Tigress of Nigeria go down there and see what they can be able to do.
Well, talking about basketball reminds me that 5-time champions for the Nigerian Premier League basketball, Rivers Hoopers, have completed the signing of yet another player, Peter Olisemeka, ahead of the 2024 Basketball League in Africa. We understand he's a 6'9" center recently who played for Valencia in Romania.
Yeah, but I think for me, another great addition for Rivers Hoopers of Nigeria. We've seen them, I think this is going to be the 5th player now they've actually signed. And I think for me, all players, they're very, very good, very, very fantastic. These are players that have gotten experience when it has to do with the basketball, African League. And I think for me, this time around, Rivers Hoopers are not just going to the Basketball African League, they are going with experience, and I think that is what will actually help them this time around, because last time we saw Kwara Falcons went there with almost going there with home-based players. But from what we've seen this time around, Rivers Hoopers are changing the narrative, trying to bring in those experienced players, and I think for me is a good one at this point, despite the fact that they are actually in a group of 10. But I think for me, the players they've been able to get at this point in time, will be able to, of course, see them through. They've gotten the likes of John Wickens, they've gotten the likes of Wee Perry, and as well Kevin Omayo, and now they're getting Peter as well. This will be a very great one for them, and I think for me, what they need to do at this point in time is just to see how they can train, let the players understand themselves on the court, because it's not that by bringing these players and you don't get yourself, acquainted. The other players don't get themselves acquainted with these players, but once the players understand themselves on the court, I tell you, Rivers Hoopers, will actually go down there and put up a very, very impressive performance.
Well, I think that looks like a very good one for Rivers Hoopers, injecting their team with 5 foreign-based players understand about three Americans and two Nigerians who are based outside of Nigeria. Wish them the very best. We understand Dave Vaneke, Kevin Amayo, John Wilkins, and Will Perry are the foreign-based players who have joined this squad. So we wish them the best of preparation. Preparation continues in Lagos for a week, and we'll see whether they will be dashing out. But talking about Rivers Hoopers, tough opponents in their group. AS Douanes of Senegal, the home side. There is a US Monastir, defending champions in that squad as well. And one other very difficult team is in
APR of Rwanda.
APR of Rwanda is in that squad. That's a lot of work to do.
A lot of work to do for River Supers. A lot of work to do. And you take a look at these teams in that group. They've actually gotten their experience when it has to do with playing in the Basketball African League. US Monastir, like you mentioned, defending champion. APR of Rwanda, AS Douanes of Senegal. They've been in the Basketball African League not once, not twice. They've gotten their experience, you know. And for me, playing against such a team, you really have to come prepared. And I think I love what River Supers are doing at this point, getting the experience of these players. It will actually help them because this time around, they don't have to go down there relying on home-based players. They have to also rely on these players that have gotten the experience when it has to do with playing in the Basketball African League. Despite the fact that they're in a group of death, but I think from what they've been doing so far, getting the players and also getting new players into the team and also training very well. And I think it will help them, of course, you know, to be able to challenge these teams, you know, win their group. So let's just see what comes up this time around. We hope Ogo Dowd will be able to dish out, of course, his tactical progress this time for me to see River Supers going down there and able to challenge these other teams.
Well, let's go to the NBA. Of course, you know the NBA after regular season and, of course, the play-in tournament right now is in the playoff, and we've seen 2 games out of 7 played out. And in the early hours of this morning, we saw Minnesota Timberwolves beat the Phoenix Suns by 105 points to 93 points. This is now 2-0 in favor of the Timberwolves. Phoenix Suns are not having a very good time at the playoff in the first 2 games.
So sad, so sad, so sad. Timberwolves, you know, taking up this one. I think for me, it's so sad at this point that Phoenix Suns not having a very good start. 2-1 now as it stands. For
me, it was 11-0 in the 4th quarter. That's strange against Phoenix Suns.
That's actually very, very strange. And we don't expect, of course, I didn't expect to see Phoenix Suns, of course, struggling in that particular series, but it is what it is. 2-1, you could say we still have, you know, at least, let's say 4 games, of course, you know, to go this time around. So I think for me, it's not done and dusted. They can possibly bounce back, you know, on this particular one. It might be very worse or might look actually awful, taking a look at the way they've started. 2-1 for me, I think is not done. The Phoenix Suns, they still have a chance this time around to come back against the Minnesota Timberwolves. Minnesota
Timberwolves right now leading at the Western Conference 2-0. Of course, you know it's a 7-game series, so we still have more games to go. Let's see whether it will be expanded 3 or even 2-1 like Kingsley did mention there. Let's look at what's happening at the Eastern Conference. At the Eastern Conference, early hours of this morning, we saw the game involving Milwaukee Bucks and against Indiana Pacers. Milwaukee Bucks playing at home, 108 to 125 scored by Pacers. Indiana Pacers were really spaceful there. 125 against 108 scored by Milwaukee Bucks. Is it has anything to do with the absence of Gianni Antetokounmpo?
Yes, of course. He has a lot to do with him because don't forget, most of the time you take a look at the Milwaukee Bucks side. That team is actually built around Gianni Antetokounmpo. Whenever he's not on the court, of course, you expect to see a little bit of struggle for the Milwaukee Bucks. I think for what we've seen at this point in time, the Milwaukee Bucks, they still have a lot to play for. The Indiana Pacers still have a lot.
It's 1-1 in the series now.
1-1, as it is. So for me, more to play for at this point, for both teams. And you could take a look at it that the Milwaukee Bucks, at this point, they have a very huge chance. They have an advantage because we're looking forward for Antetokounmpo, of course, to bounce back maybe in the next 2-3 games. And if he comes back, of course, it will be a morale boost, to the team, as well as the coaches and the players as well. So for me, for what we're seeing, a lot to play for. I think it's leveled at this point in time. We should look forward to see how, of course, the next, let's say, I think 5 games, of course, will pan out.
Let's go back to the Western Conference where we saw one encounter in the early hours of this morning. Mavericks against LA Clippers. None of them could put up as many as 100 points. It was Mavericks with 96 points. The LA Clippers had just 93 points. But this now has even the tie in the group 1-1 in the Western Conference between Dallas Mavericks and Clippers from Los Angeles.
Yes, I think for me, we just have to see it's getting very cagey at this point, at this initial stage. No team wants to actually, leave any stone unturned. Everyone is actually pushing hard, to make sure, they fight, to get down to the finals, at this point in time. So I think that's what we're seeing, KG encounter as well at this point in time, and we should be looking forward to see how, of course, this one will end. And like I mentioned, all the teams, are living up to expectation, trying most kind to hold their own, and that's why we're seeing it very cagey at this point in time. But just like you mentioned, the game between Mavericks and the LA Clippers, I think there's still a lot to play for. All they are just trying to course to hold their own at this point. We should be looking forward, to see how the remaining 5 games, of course, will pan out.
Talking about remaining games, in the early hours of tomorrow morning, you should see actually involving Bolton Celtics and Miami Heat. If you're a Nigerian, Bama Adebayo is on the squad list for Miami Heat, and so we'd like to see how that one will pan out in the early hours of tomorrow morning. Still tomorrow morning, Oklahoma City Thunders have New Orleans Pelicans to contend with in yet another crunch tie at the playoff. Kingsley, these are really, really mouth-watering fixtures. Which one are you expecting to keep an eye on?
I would really want to look at the game between Boston Celtic and Miami Heat. It is 1-0 now in favor of Boston Celtic, and from what we're seeing at this point in time, the Miami Heat, I think they've really gotten a little bit of struggle. They struggled to get, to the playoff, and now we're also seeing them at this point in time struggling against the Boston Celtic. But I think, Bam Adebayo, Jimmy Butler, if it's going to be in that one, will want to prove themselves this time around in this second encounter. So let's just see how it goes into pan out. But I think Boston Celtic, they have what it takes as well to put up a challenge. But from what we're seeing, I think Miami Heat will want to bounce back in this second encounter. It promises to be an interesting encounter, and we'll look forward to see how it will end.
Well, we'll keep our fingers crossed on it, and we'll do keep you posted in the hours of tomorrow morning when we are back here on Sports Talk. Definitely will give you the results of what happened involving this team. It is the playoff in the NBA, and you can't take your eyes off it with the kind of results that are turning up in the early hours of the morning. Time for us to take a break. When we return from a break, we'll look at tennis, where the 2024 International Table Tennis Federation World Cups in Macau is getting ready to heat up. And across that, in football, Emirates Stadium last night was rocking because Chelsea was beating black and blue. I will let you know how that 5-0 result came about last night and what to expect from Arsenal ahead of the run-in to the end of the Premier League here in England. Details of this and many more will be yours when we return from the break.
Telling him not to counterpunch. Telling him not to counterpunch.
Every day, our lives are changed by history.
We are one people
Leaders, politics.
Nobody's ambition is what the blood.
I have fought a very firmly.
Natural occurrence, war, and the world economy.
I belong to everybody, and I belong to nobody.
ATN covers it all on ATN Politics today.
Illegally. That is amazing.
Honorable
You human
on the point of order.
Honorable
On them. They are not picking our calls. They made up their mind.
So no agreement with the EU, but
from the line across the ocean to the land beyond the mountains, through the Sahara, we bring on sport news, live analysis, expert discussions on trending stories in politics, business, socio-economy, sports, and documentaries. So catch all the updates on the happenings around the globe. Stay focused on the fact today. Only on ATN.
telling him not to counterpunch.
Welcome back. It's Sports Talk here on Atlantic Television Network and giving you latest happenings around the world of sport. Kingsley is here and of course giving you informed knowledge of it as well. Meanwhile, in tennis, we are told that the International Table Tennis Federation latest ranking has been released, and in 19th place is Nigeria's Haruna Quadri, Nigeria's best table tennis player. Kingsley, 19th. Is it good enough for Nigeria and Haruna Quadri?
No, not good enough at all. I think earlier this year we saw Haruna being ranked, I think, 14th, and now he has dropped to 19th. So I think it's a very, very disappointing one. We saw a very awful performance at the World Table Tennis, World Cup, tournaments. Also saw another awful performance at the All African Games as well, where he was actually being beaten by Egypt, Omar Assar as well. It's been a very huge setback, for Haruna. For recent, and I think for me that's why he has actually dropped, to 19th position. Not a very good one at this point in time, and that begins to bring the question: what is happening? Haruna is aging, and very soon, of course, he will fade away. Do we have the next Haruna Quadri that will come, of course, to take up his place? From what we've seen so far, we've not been able to see any other table tennis player, in Nigeria that will actually will get to this height, or probably do what Haruna is doing at this point in time. It calls for a lot of concern. And take a look at the likes of Omar Assar. I think he's been very, very fantastic, since the All African Games, where he also put up a very, very impressive performance as well for himself. He's been taken to that number 14th position, and that's a very good one as well, for the edition. And a lot of worry at this point in time for Haruna Quadri. A lot of worry for the Table Tennis Federation down here in Nigeria, that our best table tennis player at the moment is not doing very well for himself. I think Nigeria should be worried. Even Aruna, of course, himself as well, should be worried. He should be looking forward, of course, to step up his game and see how, he can make himself better. We understand age is not by his side. We understand that, he's been in the game for a very long time. He's achieved a lot. But I think you should look forward to see how he should step his game if he's willing to play, for a longer time.
Aruna Kwali needs to step up his game, and at 19th place position, having been 14th in the past, doesn't look too good. It looks like he's, retrogressing, but maybe it has to do with age, and the Nigerian Table Tennis Federation has to really sit up and see how there could be a replacement for Haruna Quadri, who is doing so well, but now beginning to retrogress, sliding from 14th to 19th on the International Table Tennis Federation ranking. Omar Sarr, his other opponent, how good was he at the rankings?
Yeah, the man has been very fantastic since the All-African Games. He's been very impressive in all the tournaments he's played since then, and that's why we've seen that progress for him. 14th position at this point in time, and we see it's a good one, of course, for Omar Sarr, who has really stepped up, of course, his game, at this point in time. And that's why, of course, when it has to do with table tennis down here in Africa, you always give it up to the Egyptian, especially when Omar Sarr, of course, is in the mix. And I think for me, it's a very huge competition now for Aruna Quadri. If he doesn't step up and Omar Sarr, of course, continue with this level of performance, he might actually, of course, give him that huge gap. Already, take a look at the ranking already. I was seeing 5 points difference at this point in time when it has to do with the ranking. 14th position for Omar Sarr, I think is a very good one for him.
Well, quickly now, let's go to football. And talking about football at this point in time, Kingsley, the biggest discussion around is what happened at the Emirates Stadium last night. Was it an embarrassment? Chelsea embarrassed 5-0 at the end of 90 minutes plus added time.
Huge embarrassment, Mr. C. Very, very huge embarrassment for Chelsea Football Club. I think the problem is nobody truly understands what's the situation with Chelsea at the moment.
After spending 1.2 billion pounds,
1.2 billion pounds, getting players left, right, center, and at the end of the day, nothing to show for. They're even fighting, to get the European sports, this time around. Okay, we expected Arsenal to beat them probably based on the present form of Arsenal Football Club, but not to 5-0. They were unable to get a goal.
Talk about 5 goals to nothing. This is the first time in nearly 40 years that Chelsea will be this beaten in London. This is one of the worst records in 40 years. Yes, in fact, about 38 years to be specific. They've never lost as many as 5-0, and so in 38 years plus, this is Chelsea's worst defeat out there in the city of London. It's looking very embarrassing. We saw that goal scored by Trossard in just under 5 minutes of the encounter. And in the second half, it was 18 minutes of madness, 4 goals scored in 18 minutes. That was really, really a big work for Chelsea.
Very, 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 work and huge, very, very embarrassing as well. And as well, at some points, I fault Mauricio Pochettino, because you take a look at those goals that came as well, in the second half of that game. You also attributed at some point to defensive error. We saw him bringing Thiago Silva very late, of course, in that game, and so many persons were faulting him for that, particular substitution. Why don't you bring Thiago Silva very early in that encounter? At least he would have been, very instrumental at that defense, for Chelsea Football Club. So for me, I think Mauricio Pochettino, of course, should also take part of the blame, apart from the players, of course, who were able, of course, to create and convert the chances, yesterday for them. I think for me it was a very, very disappointing one. They actually brought, the likes of Nicholas Jackson to actually be the finisher on the team, but Nicholas Jackson has actually been a shadow of himself. He will actually get the ball to finish, put the ball into the back of the net is actually a problem. When it has to do with creating chances for goal, Chelsea, they are one of the teams in the Premier League this season that are very good in terms of creating chances. So what is the problem? Why are they not converting those chances to goals? That's the problem at this point in time at Chelsea. And I think for me, for next season, they should look forward to a good striker.
Chelsea and Jackson, we've seen him miss what looks like schoolboy goals. Last night, face to face with goalkeeper, and he took the ball away from the post. That was strange. We've seen him missed chances, but two clear chances last night was, would I say, unpardonable. And this is one of the players that, like we said, he was brought in to finish, but it looks like in the other way around, according to my friend, he's finishing Chelsea and not finishing for Chelsea.
It's actually a very sad stating at this point in time, and for what we're seeing, for Nicholas Jackson, I don't know what's actually wrong with the young man, because he's not getting things right for himself.
The coach of the team, Coach Pochettino, says the players gave up after the second goal, or even the third goal. The entire team gave up. Do you want to agree with Coach Pochettino that the team gave up at the Emirates Stadium?
I won't totally agree with Pochettino, because even at some point, even at 80 minutes at that game, we still saw Chelsea players, they were still in possession of the ball, still trying to create one or two chances, of course, to get at least, a goal in that particular encounter. So for me, I think it's not about, giving up. Why would they give up, in such an encounter? They really need a win. They're also fighting for a European sport, at the end of the day. Why would you want to give up, against Arsenal football team? So your own rival as well. So for me, I think it was very disappointing outing, for Chelsea. Mauricio Pochettino should take part of the blame in not, putting up a very good substitution down there. The players as well, Madueke, Nicholas Jackson, these players, of course, should, take part of the blame. And for what we're seeing there, I think the absence of Cole Palmer as well, one man who has been very instrumental, to Chelsea Football Club this season, also played in that game. I think his absence, really...
A lot of people talked about the absence of Cole Palmer. At least they will have scored a goal or thereabout. But Arsenal seems to be keeping very clean sheets of recent.
Yes, Arsenal on their own part, of course, they've been very, very fantastic. Since the All-Star against Aston Villa and as well as Bayern Munich in the Champions League, they came back to the Premier League. There's 2 wins now in a row for them. The one against Wolverhampton Wanderers and now Chelsea Football Club for them. You see, huge statement for the Gunners in terms of chasing for the title, this time around. I think they're looking forward to, see how they can lift the title. What the prayers now should be, will Man City, lose, on the road. That's the thing now at this point, because if City do not lose, it means it's going to be very, very difficult, for Arsenal at this point in time. But for me, I think Arsenal players are very optimistic this time. They don't want to leave any stone unturned, getting a job.
Talking about Arsenal players reminds me of Kai Havertz. A lot of people have criticized him in the past, but he seemed to have punished his former club side, by 2 goals last night.
Impressive, feat, of course, for Kai Havertz. When he was at Chelsea, it was, of course, nothing to write home about. I don't think, you take a look at it, it seems as if Chelsea, not a very good club, at this point in time, for players, to excel. Because you take a look at what is happening down there, it seems as if when you go down there, you struggle. We've seen some couple of players, that have actually come down there and, seems to be struggle. You talk about the likes of Enzo Fernandez, and the rest of them. You talk about even Cole Palmer, yes, came from Manchester City. Yes, he's been doing well. That's a player that's been able to single out, himself among others. But it seems as if when you get to Chelsea, or maybe you're playing for Chelsea, you tend to be struggling. This Nicholas Jackson, where we're talking about, was doing well. We saw the likes of Moses Caicedo at Brighton, even before he came down to Chelsea. He was also doing well before he came down to Chelsea Football Club. So what's really the problem that whenever they get down to Chelsea, they seem to struggle? The same thing happened to Kai Havertz as well when he was at Chelsea. But now Arsenal, we've seen a new Kai Havertz at this point in time, getting the ball, getting the goals, creating the chances. So for me, I think Chelsea, there's a problem down there in the team, and for Arsenal, I think they are doing well for themselves. Kai Havertz getting 2 goals yesterday for himself, I think, was such an impressive.
2 goals for Kai Havertz last night, and it was 2 goals for Ben White. Ben White looked so nice last night. What do you make of the performances of Ben White? They're not just being strong at defense, but coming forward to score 2 goals.
That's a very exceptional player, of course, if you ask me, and just like you mentioned, very good at defense, and also coming up front as well, to also salvage goals as well, for his team. I think Ben White have actually shown what he's made up of. He's a very, very impressive defender anytime, any day.
Impressive defender, Ben White scoring 2 goals last night. And let's look at one of the reasons people believe Arsenal was good last night was the, starting of Partey in the defense line, or the middle pack of Arsenal. We saw according to people, party after party last night, at the Emirates Stadium.
Oh, he was very formidable at the midfield, yesterday. Partey has not been around for some time due to injury. And a good one, of course, we saw him back and not really looking as if, of course, he's been away for some time. He was able to orchestrate those passes and create those chances. And that's what Partey, of course, is known for at Arsenal Football Club. It's good of a thing that he's back at this point in time, especially at this crucial stage that Arsenal really looking, for the title. And I think it will be a very huge boost, of course, to the midfield of Arsenal Football Club going forward.
Arsenal 5-0 last night against Chelsea, but tonight there will be some more interesting fixtures in the Premier League. We understand Bolton Wanderers will take on Bournemouth in one of the fixtures that comes out at about 7:45 p.m. Nigerian time. Crystal Palace is at home against Newcastle United. But attention will definitely be at the Merseyside derby, Everton versus Liverpool. Liverpool cannot afford to drop points in this one.
They can't afford to drop points at all because dropping points, they would just kiss.
This is a derby. Anything can happen.
It's a derby. Anything can happen, and anything happens here and Liverpool drop points, it means they should just kiss the title goodbye because it's going to be very difficult for them to catch up with the likes of Arsenal and Manchester City when it has to do with the title race. Everton at this point in time, they're not in a very good state of mind. They've struggled a whole lot. Point deduction for them. Also what Chelsea do to them in their last game as well. And now coming against Liverpool, I think they want to go all out, so at least to make sure that they fight under to survive relegation and see how they can keep themselves in the Premier League come next. And so it's going to be a very, very tight encounter for Jurgen Klopp. I think he will also want to fight. This is his last season. At least getting the Premier League will also be one achievement for him. But you take a look at it, it seems a bit that the Premier League is a little bit far from them. Taking a look at their performance, but anything can happen. It's a game of football. Liverpool, of course, can still get all 3 points away from home.
Arsenal presently leads at the Premier League table by 4 points, but of course we know that Manchester City and Liverpool have to catch up with them. Liverpool playing tonight. City will play on Thursday night against Brighton, but a lot of people are beginning to have doubts about the performance of the City in that fixture with the absence of 2 of their key players from training session yesterday. No Erling Haaland, Phil Foden, very instrumental to their performance this season, were absent in training. Will this have an effect on what to expect on Thursday night?
I think it might. You take a look at Manchester City, they look a little bit depleted. We saw what they played, in their last game. That was against Chelsea in the FA Cup. They struggled in that game. Chelsea had most of the chances. They dominated. And I think, according to Pep Guardiola, he said it was as a result of fatigue due to the fact that the players were just coming back from the UEFA Champions League game against Real Madrid, and they are playing the FA Cup. That some of the players were very, very tired, and that's why they couldn't do their best, on the pitch of play. But the absence of Phil Foden, Erling Haaland in that encounter will really tell a lot, for City. Brighton are also not that they're very fantastic, but it can actually cause that damage at any point in time. But let us see how that one, of course, will pan out. We understand Kevin De Bruyne is fit, and he might also, of course, be, very instrumental for them. Don't forget, he was also the man who helped them, to get past Chelsea in the FA Cup semi-final. Let us see how it goes down for Manchester City.
A lot of complaint about Manchester defense, especially how they see out their matches so far. Tonight, they will be at Old Trafford against Sheffield United. Can they see out 90 minutes plus added time without conceding tonight?
You don't need to depend. You don't need to depend or have confidence on Manchester United. Even the game you expect them to win, you see them, struggling. We saw them struggle against Coventry in the FA Cup, semi-final. No one expected such a struggle for Manchester United against the championship team that has seated 8th position in the championship. That's how bad, of course, it has been for Manchester United, leading 3-0, and all of a sudden we saw Coventry coming up to equalize that particular one and getting down to penalties. Coventry were not just lucky. They would have actually won that game against Manchester United. So against Sheffield United, Sheffield are struggling in the relegation zone in the Premier League at this point in time. I don't see it to be an easy pass, despite the fact that United are at Old Trafford tonight. I don't see it to be an easy pass for Manchester United. The struggle, in the team has been something else. No winning mentality, no hype level of pressing, with the team. I don't think the players are actually being motivated in any way at all. So for me, I'm not seeing it to be an easy pass for Manchester United. Somebody will say Sheffield United, of course, United should get past them, but we've seen United struggle against smaller teams, in the Premier League this season. So for whatever happens tonight, I think for me, I won't actually put it in my mind. United are not in the right frame of mind. The players are not in the right frame of mind, at this point in time.
Well, we have to wrap up the show, but we'd like to say congratulations to Inter Milan. They are winners already in the Italian Serie A. And Kingsley, you can't stop but congratulate Inter Milan, especially with a Nigerian in that squad, having won the league title in Italy.
Yeah, impressive one, of course, for Inter Milan. So far, I think they've actually done well. I think the second highest winners when it has to do with the Italian Serie A, apart from Juventus, they have done it, so but I think it's a huge one as well for the coach, Simone Inzaghi, who actually, came in and was able to